Welcome to Bold Talk series, where creativity, leadership, ideas, and innovation come together. My name is Epi Ludvik, and today I have a privilege to have a short one-on-one conversation with Erich Joachimsthaler, founder and CEO at VIVALDI Group. Erich, great seeing you. Welcome to our Bold Talk series. How are you?
Thank you, Epi. Very good to be here. Thank you.
Well, Erich, I've been looking forward to this conversation. We're connected on LinkedIn for many years. We never had an opportunity to have
Yeah,
this discussion. So I thought it'd be really great to
indeed.
have you in a Bold Talks. It's a short format conversation, and I'm truly looking forward to, first for myself, but also for people who are not familiar with your work. I would love to first start with what was that inflection point that pulled you out of the world of academia, messy world of business, you know?
Yes. No, there's a pretty simple story. When I was a postdoc at Harvard Business School, and in those days, that was actually a long time ago, early '90s. I noticed that the intangible asset value of the firm had grown substantially to about 30% from 15%. And in those days, I said, how can you measure that intangible asset value, which is oftentimes goodwill, and to that associated with that is the brand. So I said, like, hey, one way to put my mark in the world, if you will, as a young assistant professor was to say, I'm going to build this measure the intangible asset value of the brand. In those days, Intel was a good example. Intel Inside that realized that a big part of the value is actually the name Intel. And even though you buy a computer and the tangible thing, but the intangible thing that makes the computer valuable was actually Intel Inside, as you know. And then in 10 years during my professorship, I developed ways of managing that, not just measuring it. And we called it brand equity. And then we measured a brand strategy. If you have something that measures, you have a strategy to manage it, to create value. We called it brand strategy. And by 2000, we said, no, you could manage an entire portfolio of brands or businesses or products. And we created what is called brand architecture. And when I did this all together and came together for all these years, I said, and now it's time to leave academics and go to what we say the real world of business. And I started Vivaldi here in the city, New York.
Yeah, a great place to be, right? Where the true action of business and commerce is everything just.
I started there and I said, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, right? There's a song that comes along from Frank Sinatra. This is New York, New York.
Yeah.
And I regretted it many times, I have to say, AP. Why? The reason is because as an academic, you have a very nice job there is a nice continuity. You have students, they show up every 2 years. They're in the MBA program. They're new. Their salary is fixed and modest, but it's kind of a nice world. And then starting Vivaldi here in the city, it's not always the same straight line that you progress. and everything else gets sort of like in another dimension, let's
Yeah.
say.
The roller coaster of the business world, right?
Yeah,
But for
exactly.
me, I think the best thing that ever happened to me when I came to New York and as a teenage boy and started to understand, here's the capital of the world, where not just for finance but the brand. And I learned early days is that it's not that the best brand wins, it's the best well-known brand that wins, and so you
Yeah,
have the best
yeah.
products out there, but if you're not well known, people will not know about you, and you won't be able to achieve what you want to achieve. So the power of branding, that invisible asset that you mentioned.
Hmm.
Let's start first with your Vivaldi and how that was built.
Hmm.
based on what I
Yeah.
know, Vivaldi was built around a simple but radical premise, starting with the demand,
Yeah.
supply, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Usually, a lot of it,
Yeah.
they start with a supply
Yeah.
first, or
That's right.
even startups they make that huge mistake, right?
That's right.
Walk us through like how
Yeah.
that idea takes shape in there.
There were several principles. One of them was when you think of brands, the first thing you think of a product or a company, and then you build emotions or a visual identity, a design around it. And in those days, there were companies on one side that would say, "We are corporate identity. We can create a name and a logo and colors, and we create a design, and that's what we call a corporate identity, and we will build your brand." And there was on one side design firms and or an advertising agency that would create a visual expression, and on the other side there was this, let's say, the large consulting companies, McKinsey, BCG, and Bain, and they would have a little understanding about brand, but they would advise these big companies and say about their portfolio and their businesses. And I felt like there was, on one side, there was too much of the creative and design world that didn't connect to strategy. And on the other side, there was also the McKinsey's, BCG, and Bain. They didn't understand about consumers, about the demand side. And I felt like there was this middle ground that was missing, someone that really understands the demand side, consumers. We call it from the outside in, and then understand the consumers, and then work with yourself from the outside back and says, this is what a brand strategy or brand should look like and should act like. And that sort of was my sort of game plan, because McKinsey, BCG, and Bain is highly respected with the C-level, with the executives in companies, but they didn't have a very good or a lot of strengths in understanding consumers, understanding intangible assets, and things like the brand. And on the other side was the corporate identity firms, Lando, Future Brand, Inda Brand, and all of those, Siegel and Gale, Lippincott. They're all branding design agencies, but they don't know the strategy, why it is valuable from a strategic point of view. In those days, they were more driven by the expression of it. And so that's when I said that there was a niche and for me. And I started literally by myself, and then now we are over 100 people.
But what made you believe it will work? Like, what was the time that you had this conviction? What happened? Like,
Yeah, good question. Good. I think that when I was around, I did 3 or 4 articles in HBR, Harvard Business Review, and they got some good resonance. And back then, in like 97, 98, 99 or something, the year 2000, and we go like, whoa, our work is actually published in the Harvard Business Review. So for us, it was sort of like there is some demand, and we got some calls from some executives that says, "Hey, I read the article. Can you come and do some work for us, or come and give a talk or something?" And that was the beginning. However, AP, what I realized when I arrived in New York and I had 5 people, then 10 people in the office, I realized I can't just rely on the telephone, because the telephone didn't ring all the time. And then I had to learn how to do business. And like I had to learn to build my own brand, if you will. And that one became then the starting point was basically to say, where can I knock at the door and can say, "Hi, I have a company here. Can you hire me, please?" It was a very humble beginning of knocking at the door and actually generate enough business, I guess.
yeah. And I assume when you were knocking those doors and you were just introducing yourself and your last name, you probably took like just 5 minutes just explain about your last name, perhaps. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, no, you're not kidding. There are a lot of people who asked me, who said, wait, sir, just with all respect, you're in the branding business, but shouldn't you start branding with yourself first? Who would understand the name Joachimsthaler, let alone pronounce it properly?
Yeah, amazing.
So we were joking, we said, the Schuster's kids don't have to have shoes, same story as always.
So, Eric, so you wrote a book a few years back,
Yeah,
Interaction Field,
yeah, yeah,
and take us into the moment,
yeah,
that
yeah,
model that clicked for you, and
yeah,
what were you seeing in the world that others were missing at that time?
yeah. To me, the first book that I did was Brand Leadership, that described the way you think of brand. Then I did one called, also at the Harvard Business School, called Hidden in Plain Sight, to look at consumers, at demand from the outside in. And that was about innovation. But around 2013 and 14, I realized that what makes a company successful, what drives business and creates value in some very interesting new ways, is not by just selling a product or a brand to a customer, to what you said earlier, like the supply side to the demand side. There's actually something else happening. And a good example is Apple. Now, Apple, of course, sells you the mobile phone, right? The success of Apple is not just the mobile phone, it is the App Store. And the App Store is very interestingly a platform, an interaction field, a network, where on one side there are people like you and me who download the app whenever you need to do something. And that makes actually this thing extremely useful. And on the other side, you have 1,000 developers who actually write software and put it on the App Store. If you remember, before the App Store, you had to go to a store like a Best Buy and buy a shrink wrap set of CDs or something that you then had to upload on your computer. And that was when you was still a world of a product sells to a consumer with a brand name. And when you think of the App Store, it is actually it is almost like an interaction field, a network, where on one side is people like you and me, and on the other side is our developers. And Apple is somebody in the middle, making good money by just managing these two sides of, if you will, the same coin. And that is what we call platforms and ecosystems or interaction fields. And when I realized that the value is enormous for Apple, for you, for me, for it's a shared value. There's value for you and for me. There's value for developers. There is very good value for Apple and so many others as well in the interaction field. And that became the new model, a new business model that is enabled by technology.
Yeah. Yeah, this is truly interesting. I mean, just that alone, it's a conversation, an hour, you and I. We'll leave that for the next time. This is a short form. I have a few more questions for you until we.
Yeah, please.
So many companies chase innovation, but you focus on reinvention,
Yep.
right? What's the difference, and why
Yes.
do most businesses struggle to make the leap?
Yes, but when you focus on innovation, you typically focus on two kinds of innovation, sort of the sustaining and then disruptive innovation. Some things that you need to do in the ordinary course of business, and you're also chasing some disruptive innovation. But reinvention is not just innovation. Reinvention to us is starting from a very different starting point, if you will. You're looking at the future 3 to 5 years out and say, how do consumers live, behave, or companies in a new way in that future? And then what you do is we call it future back. You work yourself back from that future. If you do innovation, sustaining or disruptive innovation, you're always looking from the present into the future. So Ours is very different. The world is very different when you look from the future back. And then you see entirely new opportunities to reinvent your organization. Innovation is a part of that, but you also, in the clients we work with, they also say, well, we need entirely new capabilities. And oh my God, we need entirely new talents that work for us. And so it becomes a journey that becomes extremely meaningful and powerful, as your company takes facing structural uncertainties or significant change in the industry.
Yeah.
We all do these days, right?
I'm glad you mentioned this because I'm currently working on another venture. And our approach is
Mm-hmm.
just your approach, what you were just saying. I cannot tell
Mm-hmm.
you, Eric, how useful it was. We identified so many massive opportunities, and we came to the conclusion on the just on the pre-MVP and MVP version that we're serving to some of the customers. We identified there's $1 billion business just right there, just with that alone. And not to mention the opportunity that now we know that future 5 years that we
Yeah.
can bring it and reverse
Yeah.
engineer. It's truly amazing. We even identified, can you imagine? We even identified a direct competitor that this direct competitor took probably good 7 to 10 years to have that good product market fit. They wasted so much
Yeah.
dollars, and now they're stuck in that vertical that we're going to go and attack it and going to get them out of business very soon.
Yeah.
So I think it's so important, not just for the startups, but so important for anyone in business to understand that the dynamics that looking to
Yes.
the future, it is a must. Is no longer
Yes.
sustainable and
Yes.
itself. Great point.
Yeah. It's a very good point, Epi, because we got used to design thinking alone,
Yeah.
and we got used to look at solving problems what is the problem we are solving right now, and that is important. Obviously, it's a very good practice. But if you look from the future back, you have a very different lens. And as you said, you're looking at a business right now, and you say like, wow, the potentiality is very different. And it also changes your mind. It's a good example of what you mentioned just now is you're thinking of competitors in a totally new way, because you're thinking of the competitor, not what they offer right now, sort of can they potentially reach where you are going after. And you say like, no, as you said, they are stuck actually, or we can disrupt them at this stage or something. So I think it's a very good mindset to have as an entrepreneur starting a business, or even at an existing
Yeah.
business.
100%. Now, you've dealt with many customers. I've dealt with many clients. Has there been a time when you had to challenge a client's assumptions, push back on what they wanted because it would limit their long-term potential?
We do that all the time. So one of the things we are brought in many times is we use our creative teams, about 15, 20 people on a creative design side. But we also have an analytical, structured phase. Many times executives, they have an idea. They are oftentimes divided in opinions, but they know intuitively, they know their business much better than us. But what we do is at Vivaldi is we have a system, a process we go through, and usually we end up at one particular point in the collaboration with the client, where half of the members in the leadership team of the company will say, well, I don't really agree with, I wanted to go the other way. And so we need to then figure out how do you challenge the assumptions that the team made. In fact, the easy part of our work, I have found, is to write a document, to write a PowerPoint, to give a good presentation, to organize a workshop. But that is usually a smaller part of what we do. It used to be much bigger part years ago. Today, I realize that it is actually, thanks very much for your ideas, but we need to get this implemented right now. And therefore, you are confronting the assumptions that individual executives have. And we need to bring them together onto one roadmap.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's why I have gray hair, why I have more gray hair than you, Epi.
Eric, I'm truly enjoying this conversation. I'm so glad that we had this podcast together. Truly looking forward to doing another one soon, maybe in a longer format. Go deep into the conversation. I always love to ask this as the last question to my guests, and this question is about what does the word bold mean to you?
To me, bold means a number of things. Means energy. Bold means edge. Bold means also I almost say grounded. So trying to find realistic about, because edge, we talked about the challenging assumptions. So bold is not crazy.
Mm.
Bold is being really having substance and having an identity and having a set of assumptions about what the world looks like, and then having edge and energy to discover something that is bold, actually, that stretches those, that challenges those assumptions, that sort of breaks the conventions and says, I'm doing something that is beyond convention. This edge energy that is bold.
Amazing, 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 amazing. Eric, so great to see you. Thank you
Yep.
again for joining me. This is
Yeah,
truly
absolutely.
one of my favorite podcasts that I've done as of today. I truly appreciate your time and looking forward
Thank you
to
so
next
much,
time
Epi.
in New York or somewhere else. Have a great
Yeah,
evening, have a great summer, and always be great and
thanks indeed.
be bold. Take care.
Happy vacation and happy travel and a nice journey.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Eric. Take care.